So this question answer session will cover plenty of things. मैं आप लोगों को बताऊं, अगर मैं आपको कुछ words बताऊं कि टाइम मैगजीन, विजय माल्या, आर के लक्ष्मण, बॉक्सिंग, ऐसे अलग अलग वर्ड्स कि अगर कोई कॉमन लिंक है तो वो हमारे चीफ गेस्ट भरत दाभोलकर जी है. एक 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 करके क्वेश्चंस हम ऐसे पूछेंगे सो दैट वी नो हिज जर्नी, वी नो हिज वर्क, and also will conclude with asking his advice for the Rotary. So kuch,
Sir,
yes, sir.
before you begin, I must thank the Rotary Club for inviting me here. And I always say this because I've had very embarrassing experiences when people invite me like this. Some years ago, a lady had come to meet me. I think she was the secretary of the Indo-American Society's Ladies Wing. I think Indus or something it's called. And she came to me and said, Mr. Dabholkar, will you come and talk to our members on advertising? And I very humbly asked her, I said, why are you calling me? There are so many other people who are better than me in advertising, who are better speakers. Why don't you call one of them? I finished saying that, and that day I realized how ruthlessly honest women can get on your face. That lady looked at me straight in the eye and said, yes, Mr. Dabholkar, we know there are people better than you in advertising who are better speakers, but most of them are out of town. And last minute, we can't get anybody else, so why don't you come this year? Next year, we'll get a better speaker. So when I was invited here, I haven't asked why me, I know why me. So you can avoid that question.
That's so humble of him, only we know how we got him. We'll start with my personal favorite question. You have handled all the brands of Vijay Mallya, you have launched them, you have advertised them, and they've been super successful. But you have never touched alcohol in your life.
No.
So how you came up with that branding, and please share something later.
Thing, I have handled everything that Vijay Mallya launched in the market. McDowell #1, Signature Whiskey, Honeybee Brandy, Royal Treasure Rum, London Pilsner Beer. And in my life, entire life, I have never touched even wine, beer, or a sip of champagne. And it used to be embarrassing because I would go for a launch of let's say a new campaign for McDowell's. And Vijay Mallya would say, this is the man who's done this campaign, and there would be the marketing team and sales team. And at the end of it, I would stand there with a Coke in my hand. And Vijay would come and say, Bharat, that looks very embarrassing because we've just told them that you are the man who did all this and you are standing with a Coke. Hold the glass, nobody's going to watch if you're really drinking. And I said, what difference does it make if I don't drink? He said, how would they believe that you can write for a brand if you don't personally use it? Now, please, ladies, excuse me, this is what I had said that time, so I'm embarrassed saying this. So I told Vijay, I said, doesn't matter if I use it or not. I said, Vijay, for one of your companies, last month I launched a sanitary napkin. And I came for that conference, and nobody questioned how I can write about that product if I don't use it. So I don't have to drink to write about your liquors. So he never asked me after
that. Your most famous, I should say, campaign for Amul butter. Just now when we were chatting, you just mentioned the chairman of Amul, Mr. Kurian, never was late even for a single minute for any meeting. And this Amul hoardings, apart from the girls' creation, the message, the timing, and the humor. So everything, like it won, I think, maximum number of advertising awards in the history of advertising in India, right? So please tell us how you managed that to come out with such a creativity at the right time and how you did that.
I'll tell you, the success for what Amul was, is, and will be in the future does not go to people like us. You know, you can find creative people penny a dozen. It goes to a man called Dr. Kurian. He was the world's best client. When we met him, he said, I understand nothing in advertising. I understand milk and milk products. Don't show me what you do. He's the only client in the world who said, don't show me what you do, just go ahead and do it. The reason why it was so topical was, suppose we are sitting here in the evening and there's a cricket match going on and Virat Kohli scores a century. I would think of a line, I would phone up my office and say, do a drawing like this, I'll finish this and come to the office, get the hoarding guys to put a scaffolding and whitewash it, and we'll paint the hoarding in the night. So next morning, before you read what Virat Kohli had done in the newspapers, there was a joke on an Amul hoarding on that subject. Now this was possible because there was no client to go to next morning. In every other campaign, you go to a client, you show them what you have, they make some suggestions, you make those changes, go back again. That takes about 2 or 3 days. Now, Virat Kohli scored a century on a Saturday, makes no sense on Wednesday. It makes sense only if it comes on a Sunday morning. So the topicality of it was possible only because of a client like Dr. Kurian. So I think Amul campaign existed before I got into advertising. I'm a lawyer by education. I had nothing to do with advertising. And the line, utterly butterly, was the last line of a jingle. The last 2 lines were, Amul is the answer to your wishes. It's utterly butterly delicious. I think my contribution to Amul was that I Indianized the Amul girl. Because I grew up in Malvar Hill with Gujarati, so I speak, read and write Gujarati. I speak Hindi, Marathi. I went to a Marathi medium school, so I know Marathi. So I started doing Amul butter hoarding in different languages. For Pune or Dadar in Mumbai, I would do a Marathi hoarding. For Ahmedabad, I would do a Gujarati hoarding. So I think that reached out to people better. It's the topicality, and you know, we call it empathy in advertising. That in communication, the perfectness of language is not important. The perfectness of communication is important. Are you talking the language of the people you are talking to? And if you can even make the same mistakes that they are making, they love it. My theatre worked like that. English theatre was very English before I started getting into English theatre. It was very English. Brilliant theatres. Alec Padamsee and Hosi Vasunia, these guys were brilliant people. But they were doing English theatre in English. When I started doing theatre, when I got actors from regional theatres, I got people like Atmaram Bhende, Dilip Prabhavalkar, Kishore Pradhan, Viju Khote, Shubha Khote, Vihang Naik. They spoke broken English. But that's the English the audience spoke. So the audience had empathy with them. They identified with these guys. There was no alienation. So whether in any communication, whether it's advertising, theatre, or even conversation, if you can get the person in front to like you, they say if you go to Mantralaya in Mumbai and talk to the clerk in Marathi, he'll do your work better. Because if you talk to him in English, he can't speak English so well. So he hates you. And it's your work to be done. You talk to him in his language, and he's comfortable. So in communication of any kind, whether it's a Rotary communication, whether it's a theatre, whether it's advertising, the first thing should be, who is my audience? It's not what I want to say. It's how do I say it so the audience would understand it better. I mean, I always give an example. I'm digressing, but long back, the then Commissioner of Traffic, Dr. Pasricha had come to our office. And he had made a point and he had said, in Mumbai, we find that lots of people keep on spitting on walls outside buildings and urinating outside buildings. And some societies have made painted God's pictures on those walls, but we can't have a whole Mumbai with God's pictures. So I want to put up this hoarding, and the message that he gave us to put up was, यहाँ थूकना या पिशाब करना मना है, दंड 5,000 रुपए या कैद, by order. And very humbly I said, sir, let me tell you that in every human being there's a child hidden inside him. And the child, you tell a child not to do something, that's the first thing he will do. So if you say, we'll punish you by order, the first reaction would be, let's see how you catch me. How many policemen do you have patrolling to find somebody urinating on a wall? I said, let's do it by embarrassing them. So I said, if you permit me, I'll change the message. And I said, let's put a hoarding which says, यह गधों की पेशाब करने की जगह है. And I said, let somebody go and urinate there, somebody will click a picture, he'll never do it again. Because it is not what you want to say, it's what will make an impact on the person who's listening to you. So in any communication that you make or we make, that's the first thing to keep in mind, that am I saying anything that the audience would do the action that I want them to do? If you can do that, it always works. It's like another hoarding I had seen. If you say on a road cars are speeding, you see a hoarding which says drive slowly. How many of us slow down? But if you didn't say drive slowly, you say be careful, nude bathers may be crossing the street. If you say nude bathers may be crossing the street, they'll all not only slow down, they'll wait there. They'll say, रुक क्या जल्दी क्या है, कोई आता होगा यार, 2 मिनट से क्या फर्क पड़ता है. So if you want them to slow down, don't say drive slowly. They won't drive slowly. Give them something that will make them drive slowly. That's the heart of every communication.
Wonderful, sir. For the audience, he is called father of English because English language that we all speak today, आज हम सब जो हिंदी इंग्लिश मिक्स करके बोलते हैं, he is called the father of English. He started using it in his plays.
But that's a wrong thing. I mean, people don't know why they do that. I'm not the father of English. I've said this many times, I'll say it again. You know, I did my entire schooling in Marathi. I had English as a lower subject in my 10th standard. We had, in 10th standard, I had, this is a boy, his name is Ram, this is a girl, her name is Sita, something like that. And I joined one of the two most sophisticated colleges in Mumbai. Elphinstone and Xavier's were the two best colleges in South Bombay. I joined Elphinstone, first year arts. In my class, there were 145 prettiest girls in town and 5 boys. Best time of my life. I'll never come back. One of the boys was blind. One was our principal. Our principal was Mr. Pushi Rege. His son Manoj was in my class. So his parents stayed on the top floor. So he couldn't take a chance of being seen talking to girls. The third guy was very studious. He wasn't even interested in girls. That left 2 of us who were very keen on talking to girls. And you don't have to believe this, but I was better looking than that guy. But the problem is he could speak English. I didn't know a word in English. So even if a girl came to me and said, Bharat, do you want to bunk the next lecture and go for a film? I would answer that first in my mind. मी आईला घरी जेवायला येतो म्हणून सांगितलंय ते बहुतेक येऊ शकत नाही. Then I would translate that. I told my mother I'll come home for lunch, so I do not think I'll be able to come. Then I would say it 2-3 times to make sure that my pronunciations are right. So by the time I had an answer to a question, should have gone for the film and come back. So I realized that if I want to talk to girls, I must learn some language fast. So I started mixing Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati, whatever languages I know with English. And it worked. And then later on somebody gave it a fashionable name and said English, and Bharat Dabholkar is the father of English. I am not. This was a handicap that I used and it worked.
But the greatest writer, Pula Deshpande, identified in one of your interviews, you said, that he has identified this as the future of languages.
That is the greatest thing. Pula Deshpande, I mean, I got to know him very well later on. I must tell you, when I started doing plays as a good Marathi boy, I thought of Pula Deshpande as God of literature. So I wrote, adapted Tuza Hai Tuza Pashi in English. And I kept it the way it was. There was Kakaji sprouting Shairi, if you've seen the play. There was Acharya who was quoting shloks from Bhagavad Gita. And I put that all in English. And I went to every producer in town, Alec Padamsi, who were the big English producers. And I said, let's do this play. And they said, this won't work. A little bit of English is fine, but all the Shairi and all that to the English audience, it won't work. I wrote to Mr. Pula Deshpande, I didn't know him that time. And I said, will you give me permission to stage the play? And he wrote back saying, look, this Marathi play has been done in Hindi, Gujarati, Kannada, but it hasn't got the flavor of the Marathi that I had. So there's no chance that English will catch it, so don't attempt it. I wrote back to him saying, I'm not from theatre, I've just joined advertising, and I've written the play. Can I send you the script? If you say don't do it, I won't do it. If you say make these corrections, I'll make the corrections. I sent him the script, and Pula wrote a letter to me, which is like God sent. He said, I've gone through your script. Do it without changing a single word, because this is the language the whole of India will be speaking 10 years from now. What the greatest of producers in Mumbai wouldn't understand, Pula understand 30 years ago. And we did that play. It was called It's All Your Janab. And that revolutionized English theatre. After that, people could not do a proper English play. The only audiences that we got were English plays that got the audiences. So I think I give all the credit to Pula and giving me permission to do this.
And your play, आपका जो play था Bottoms Up, उसका review Time magazine में छपा था और उस play ने सारे records तोड़े थे.
Bottoms Up is the longest running play in the history of English theatre in India. It's been running for last like 30 years. And it created some of the biggest stars of today. I remember Javed Jaffrey was a dancer in my play and I forced him to do some acting. Shamak Dawar was a dancer. Then he said, Bharat, can I sing one song at least you give me? So I gave him a song and today Shamak Dawar is where he is. Shahid Kapoor was a dancer in my play. Then Arshad Varsi came as a dancer, and then he choreographed some 7 or 8 of my plays. He met his wife Maria in my play. Now all these guys, Sunita Rao, Shweta Shetty, they all were part of my play. And they all have gone to great heights now. But Bottoms Up worked because Bottoms Up was in English. It had some brilliant actors from Marathi stage and Gujarati stage. I mean, you name it. We had, as I said, Dilip Prabhalkar, Vinay Apte, Rishali Gokhale, you name it. And it was topical. We made fun of everything under the sun. We made fun of politicians of every party. We made fun of schools. We made fun of airlines. And we kept on changing it at every show. This was the only play that was never the same in 2 shows. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 lines. We changed whole skits. We changed whole songs topically. And that's why it just ran and ran. It was a never stopping play. And it keeps on running. Even now it runs.
There is one joke related to that play that you would like to tell this audience?
There's one joke see, whenever I talk on advertising, I say, the most important thing in advertising is knowing who you are talking to. So if I'm here today, I really don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know what your interests are. In advertising, we call it target group. You must know who your target group is. You can say the most brilliant thing to a wrong audience, and it doesn't work. And I learned this again in an embarrassing way. In Bottoms Up, which was lots of skits and dances, and we had, if the main actors had to change their costumes or makeup, we would do what we called a front curtain joke. That means when they went back to change, we would have somebody who's not in that skit come and do a 1 minute or 1.5 minute joke. So we had one joke which Ruby Patel and Sunita Rao used to do of a mother taking a daughter to the zoo. And they would come out and the mother would say to the daughter, "Are you enjoying your visit, darling?" She'd say, "Yeah, Mummy, look at those elephants and monkeys and giraffes." And the mother would say, "Any questions for Mummy?" And she would say, "Mummy, tell me, how do lions make love?" And the mother would look very embarrassed and say, "How do lions make love? I don't know, darling. All your father's friends are Rotarians."
A big round of applause for this
And
joke.
no, but the sad part comes later. And we used to do this. We did some 200 shows like this. We got fantastic response. And once we were performing at the NCP at Nariman Point, and Ruby and Sunita went out, did the full house. They went and did the joke, and there was pin drop silence. And I couldn't figure out what had gone wrong till the producer came running and said, "Are you mad doing this joke here? This show is sponsored by the Lions Club of Nariman Point." So not a person laughed in the audience. So I said, that is the importance of knowing who your target group is.
You talked about acting.
Yeah.
So if I'm not wrong, you have acted with the great Rajinikanth.
Yeah.
You have acted in the films of right from Salman Khan.
No, it's not. I've acted with practically everybody. I'm the world's worst actor. That's why in my plays, I don't take a major role. I take very small roles. But I'll also tell you how I got into acting. I've been doing theatre, and one day out of the blue, Shah Rukh Khan called me up and said he had seen my plays. And he said, "Bharat, I'm doing a new film, 1, 2 Ka 4, and they're all friends. Jackie Shroff and Juhi Chawla, they're all friends of mine." So he said, "Come and do the role." We were commandos, so Jackie, Shah Rukh, we were all acting as commandos. And I must tell you, my debut performance was that we are commandos, we've got some consignment of drugs. And we are sort of keeping it in our go-down. So there was Juhi, there was Shah Rukh, and there was me, and there was some TV actor who was a clerk in that unit of ours. And Shah Rukh gives me a packet of drugs, and I weigh it. And then I give it to that guy, and that says, "Kitna wazan hai iska?" And my debut line in cinema was 12 kilo. So he said, "Kitna wazan hai?" I said, 12 kilo. So I thought that was pretty good. Director came running and said, "नहीं भरत जी, आपको एक बात बोलने को भूल गया मैं। ये जो क्लार्क है ना, उसका एक अफेयर है, उसके बारे में आप जानते हो। तो उससे जब भी बात करते हो ना, आप उसको टोकते रहते हो कि साले तेरे घर पे आके तेरे वाइफ को बोलूं क्या?" Now I couldn't figure out how do I say that in 12 kilo. So I thought like a writer. I said, shall I say सिर्फ इसका वजन बताऊं या घर पे आके और भी कुछ बताऊं? तो डायरेक्टर से नहीं सर, आपको 12 किलो ही बोलना है, लेकिन ये ध्यान में रख के बोलना है. I was completely confused. So Shah Rukh said, "Bharat, there's a trick to this. Tell him 2 minutes देना sir, and pretend to think. So I told him, sir, 2 minutes dena. And I sort of pretended to think. And I said, sir, I'm ready now. So he said, कितना वजन है? I said, 12 kilo. He said, देखा ना आपने मन में देखा तो कितना बराबर आ गया. Then I realized that acting in Hindi film is very easy. You don't need brains to act in it. So I have acted in many Hindi films. I have acted in many Marathi. I acted in Shivaji, which nobody recognized me. I acted as Afzal Khan in that. I have done a film with Rajnikant in Tamil. I have done a film with Nagarjuna in Telugu. I have done a film with Mohanlal and Dilip and Jairam in Malayalam. And that's the thing that helped me the most. I did a film with these are the three superstars of Malayalam cinema, Mohanlal, Dilip and Jairam. And I have a photograph with them that I am in the center and three of them are standing with their hands on my shoulder. I phone all the time. So when my mother or father was in the hospital, the moment they checked in, all the nurses were Malayali. So I would call a nurse and say, do you see Malayalam films? He said, yeah, yeah. I said, do you know Mohanlal? He said, yeah, yeah. And I would show them my photograph. To see that I am with Mohanlal and Dilip and Jairam was sensational for those. My parents got the best treatment. So they went and told all the nursing staff that this man, his parents, he's with Mohanlal. So they would dote on my parents. So I still carry that. If I ever go to the hospital, I said, yeah, you know, and then I get very good treatment.
So moving on to next topic, हम सब ने हार्ली डेविडसन सुना है. एक कोई अलग चीज है वर्ली डेविडसन जो कि सिर्फ इनके पास है. Would you like to?
I love bikes. So when I was in college, I had a Royal Enfield Bullet. So when I got into advertising and I was heading this agency called Publicis, one day I thought, let's buy a bike again. It's good fun. And then I realized that it's difficult now because you carry a laptop or you carry a whatever and you're going for a meeting. Then how do you go on a bike? Rainy season. So I said, let's buy a rickshaw. I thought rickshaw is a cheap thing to buy. That time I found out, this is 15 years ago, that a normal Bajaj rickshaw without the hood costed something like 1,20,000 rupees. So I didn't want to spend so much money on it. So I bought a second-hand rickshaw for 15,000 rupees. I put an acrylic top on that. I bought a Maruti seat from Chor Bazaar, put that in the front. So 3 people can sit at the back. And I drive. I have a rickshaw license. And I can go anywhere. Mumbai, normally for rickshaws, there's a Mahim restriction. You can't go beyond Mahim. But my rickshaw can go anywhere. And then I had gone to Bangkok, and I have a house in Worli. So I got a Harley Davidson sticker made and called it Worli Davidson, and put that on my rickshaw. But the funny thing is, you know, in Mumbai we have a Navy Nagar, and they have this fantastic naval hall. And every year they have what they call the Admiral Soman Memorial Lecture. And they call an outside speaker, and all the top brass of Navy or Army, whoever is in the town that time, they attend that lecture. So one year they invited me. And they said 10 o'clock Sunday morning. I said, I'm never late. I'll be there at 9:30. They said, no, you can't do that. We have a protocol that when the admirals or rear admirals or whoever, major generals, when they're there with their wives and they're having tea, we herald in the chief guest with our riders. So you wait at Regal Theatre, we'll send our riders there. So I went in my rickshaw. And I phoned up this guy, Commander Vasan, I think his name was. And I said, sir, I'm here. He said, my riders are waiting there. I said, even I am here. He said, which car are you in? I said, I'm in a rickshaw. He said, no, sir, don't joke. I said, no, I can see your riders. I'll wave at them. I went for that function with 2 naval riders in white uniform, white bikes with those flags flying, and me driving a rickshaw behind them. But you wouldn't believe this. After my talk got over, I had to wait there for an hour and a half because every admiral, every vice admiral and their wives wanted to take a picture in that rickshaw. And they're defense people, they don't crowd around. They were all waiting in a queue. And then the admiral would come and sit in the front, his wife would sit at the back. Then she would get down and she would sit in the front and he would sit at the back. And I said, if I had a Rolls Royce, they wouldn't have done this. But for my rickshaw, they were thrilled to that. I always say creativity doesn't need money. You know, creativity just works without spending money. You can do these kinds of things.
So just when we were talking just before the start of the event, you were sharing your experiences with working in your African branch of your agency. So are there some interesting incidences that you'd like to share with
see,
that?
I have an agency for the last 15 years in Tanzania. I do a lot of work in Tanzania, Kenya, some of the biggest campaigns that I've been doing. And one thing we must always remember that universally, emotions are the same everywhere. I handle L'Oreal and Garnier. And what they teach us is we are not selling this cream. We are selling the idea of beauty. We are selling that if you use this, you will become beautiful. Now, world over that works. The idea of beauty of an African girl may be different. So the model that we use in Africa may be different than the model that we use in India. We may use a dark girl with curly hair or whatever. But what we are selling to her is saying that if you use L'Oreal or if you use Garnier, you will be beautiful and you are worth it. So advertising teaches us one thing, that emotions are the same everywhere. What we have to worry about is in what language and with what kinds of models are you presenting that. So if you get that right, it works the world over. When Maggie works the world over, the same name. Except I had a joke in my play which said that there's a quote which they threw out and they said, how can a feminine name like anything that, a product that has a feminine name like Maggie get ready in 2 minutes?
So now we move to more towards before the event. Our district governor had shared plenty of things about Rotary being such a big global brand, and we talked about the public image initiatives. So you being the biggest marketing guru India has ever seen, if you would advise Rotary to take advantage of this global branding, what your advice would be? What should we do differently? What should
Can
we
I
do
tell you
better?
honestly, before I could answer that, I would need to know what are you doing right now. See, advertising is not an off-the-cuff solution. You know, Amul butter was the only exception in the world that I would just think of a line and put it. But every other product that we do, every other campaign that we do, which is what Owens Rotary should do, is first find out what are we doing, how can we do it differently, who are we, and the most important thing is who are we talking to. You don't need to go to press. You don't need an advertisement in Times of India and reach 4 lakhs people. You don't want to reach 4 lakhs people. Maybe you want to reach the right 400 people. So the first step is finding out who are we talking to and what is it that we want to sell. What does sell in the sense promote? What does Rotary want to promote? Your social work? And if you're promoting that, the best way to do, I've done campaigns. I did Mr. Modi's 2014 campaign. The line, "Ab ki baar Modi Sarkar is mine." I never got credit or money for that, but that didn't matter. But the point that I made even later on, when other political parties also called me, was we make one mistake, which I don't know what campaigns you make, whether it's social media or whatever, that people try and say, Rotary has helped 10,000 people get better, or whatever. That doesn't touch emotionally. You should say, Radha was a girl who had a listening problem and Rotary helped her. Put Radha's picture and say, like Radha, Rotary has helped 9,900 other girls. That one person appeals to you. You connect to one person. You don't connect to 10,000 people. So every government ad that they make, and maybe I don't know if Rotary makes that, and you shouldn't if you do not make a figure and generalization. That is not emotional. To say Rotary has donated 1 lakh is not emotional. People don't understand that. There are figures. Say Rotary gave 1,000 or 5,000 rupees to this young boy who wanted an operation which he couldn't afford. His name is Janardhan. Put his picture. And then later on say, and like Janardhan, we've helped thousands of people. You have to emotionally connect to what you are saying. Don't give numbers, don't give large figures. People don't understand figures. I mean, when I read about scams in the country, and when I read coal scam was 10,000 crore, I don't even know how many zeros are in that. So I just ignore it. Connect to a person with a one-on-one thing. So every Rotary, whichever media you use for that, use it as promoting one person that you helped. Later on you can say more people you've helped, but don't give numbers. So maybe one day we should sit, before I could answer what Rotary could do, maybe you could one day sit and discuss it in details. When you see, in advertising, I'll tell you what happens. We've done many wrong things. I'll give you an example. I launched all Tata tea brands. Whichever Tata tea or Tata Tetley or coffee brand is in the market, I have launched it. Names are mine, campaigns are mine. We were launching a tea called Agni Chai, which later on became the #1 tea in the country. And this is, I'm talking about maybe 97 or something. And my campaign was a tribute to Indian women. That time the word empowerment hadn't become popular. So my jingle, I don't remember the whole jingle, but the last two lines were, शक्ति का है रूप यही, अग्नि है यही, नए समाज की उम्मीदों का प्रतीक है यही. And we always research what we do. We don't just make a campaign and release that. So to research the campaign, I made a rough jingle, and I got cuttings from different films, Hindi films, Telugu films, a woman pilot, a woman judge, a woman lawyer, a woman police commissioner. And I started testing that. We had testing research teams who went to Mumbai, Pune, Delhi. Fantastic response. Women loved it. The whole thing of this empowered women and saying that Shakti ka hai roop yahi, they loved it. Then we started researching that in smaller towns. And I went with the research team to a place called Chandosi, which is on the border of UP and Bihar. I went to that place and I said, I want to see what their reactions are. And the reactions of women there were totally different. Those women said, ये औरत क्या ऐसी प्लेन उड़ाती है क्या? वो घर में बच्चों की पढ़ाई लेती नहीं है क्या? वो अपने पति के साथ बैठ के चाय नहीं पीती क्या? वो करवा चौथ नहीं करती क्या? For them, empowerment wasn't just being a commissioner or a pilot. For them, empowerment was also being a good mother, a good daughter-in-law. So for them, we had to change that thing. We kept the commissioner, we kept the pilot, but we also added a mother who was taking her children's studies. We also added a housewife, a wife who was doing karwa chauth. So this is what you have to understand, otherwise you can go wrong. We went to Calcutta, we got a completely different response. Bengali women said, we are very empowered. We don't need to get empowered by drinking tea. Our husband listen to whatever we say. So what we want is, we have these things called pada discussions. They go to somebody's house and they sing songs and debate and fight and things like that, and they keep on drinking cups and cups of tea. So they said, we want a tea that will give us more cups. So only for Bengal, we created a new campaign of a para discussion and more cups of tea. So any communication that you put out, whether it's for a product or for Rotary, a club like Rotary, it has to keep in mind that different people have different needs. And you need to cater to all of them. You're not just talking to one. I wasn't just talking to women in Mumbai and Pune. I was talking to the Chandosi woman also. Even she had to buy my tea. So you must keep that in mind. So it's a tricky thing, but understanding the consumer or the reader is the most important thing. So if I don't know who you are appealing to, I can't give you an answer about what you should do. But what you are saying about promoting this is a must. In advertising, we have two sayings, which you may have heard. One is that a fish lays 1,000 eggs, and nobody knows about it. A hen lays one egg and makes such a racket that the whole world gets to know that she's laid an egg. So without advertising doing anything, it doesn't work. But advertising does not mean press advertising or TV. Like social media, like she's saying, that's a very powerful medium. But you must know what to say. And you must know who you are saying it to. And maybe there are different target groups that need different things to be said to them. Maybe it's to youngsters, you need to say something different. Maybe to an industrialist who is giving you money from their CSR funds, your message should be different. So it is not one message going universally. You need to identify my 5 target groups and sort of reach out to them in different ways. That's the only way it will work. Maybe one day we'll sit and talk about this.
Sure, sir. You talked about the social. We are down to our last 2 questions now. Since we have a young girl, if she doesn't mind me
In
calling
front
her.
of her, I can't even talk of social media. You should be asking her, please.
No, but my question would be, sir, a young girl like her puts one video, gets 2 crore views. What does this social media emergence, and especially post-COVID, जो इतना ज़्यादा ऑनलाइन का यूज़ हुआ है, जो इतना इसमें इमरजेंस आया है, सोशल मीडिया इन्फ्लुएंसर्स का इतना बड़ा इम्पैक्ट है सोसाइटी में, तो इसके बाद प्रिंट मीडिया पे इसका क्या असर होगा? और ये बैलेंस किसी भी, अगर हम भी अपना प्रमोट करना चाहे, कोई भी अपनी कॉज प्रमोट करना चाहे, तो ये बैलेंस कैसे रखे प्रिंट मीडिया और सोशल मीडिया का?
No medium ever dies. When television came, people thought radio will die. Radio hasn't died. World over, radio is one of the most powerful media that people use because press, television is an active medium. You need to concentrate on that. Radio is something that goes on in the background. In my house, my father would put on the radio at 6 o'clock in the morning. It would run the whole day till night. So whether my mother was cooking, I was studying, the radio was always on and it had an impact on your mind. And world over, radio still works. Press will never disappear. See, you have what happens is television will never disappear. Everything has its own sort of audiences. What happens is shifts happen. If television was getting, let's say, 80% of audiences, with social media and maybe OTT platforms coming in, that would become 60%. It wouldn't disappear. Maybe it disappear after many years. But right now, shifts happen. So percentage shifts keep on happening in different media. Nothing disappears. The only problem is, this is one problem that I have faced, because I was just at the Delhi Literary Festival and my question was, is are OTT platforms destroying newspapers and reading habits? And the question there was, the youngsters aren't reading anymore. I talked to 3 publishers of books and they said, our buyers of our books or magazines are above the age of 40 years. Below 40, the youngsters, which is very sad, they get the information only from WhatsApp forwards and Facebook and whatever Insta forwards. They do not watch the news, and these are figures given, I think. They're not interested in knowing. See, what they get is information, they don't get knowledge. See, your Facebook and WhatsApp forwards give you information. Knowledge means that you go deeper into that subject, you read more about this. Which they said, I was talking to Mr. Kumar Ketkar, who's a very senior journalist, and he said, Bharat, I have written an article in Onlooker magazine, which was a cover article, which said, dumbing down of the new generation. That they are not interested in gaining knowledge, which unless it concerns them, whether it's politics, whether it's whatever, they're interested in capsule information, which they get from their WhatsApp forwards. They don't even read what's in the forward, they just keep on forwarding it. So all WhatsApp groups get the same message without anybody reading it. So that is what is going wrong. And I think at some point we'll have to all sit down and figure out how to address that question, because unless you can get them into, that's the future of this country. So unless we can get the youth, I'll give you a simple example. I was once in a discussion with some friends and we were discussing Mahabharata. And the question that came up was, why would a mother name her children, Kaurav's mother name her children, give them negative names? Why would she call them Duryodhan and Dushasan? And we had no answer. Somebody said maybe their earlier names were Suyodhan and Sushasan, but maybe it changed later. I said, why would they call themselves Duryodhan and Dushasan? Nobody had an answer. I just went home and on Google I said the meaning of the word Duryodhan. And it opened up some 150 sites. That Duryodhan is not a negative name. Duryodhan means, like Durga is not a negative name. Duryodhan means a Yodha that is difficult to defeat. Dushasan means a Shasak whose Shasan is very strict. Now you get this information if you take the trouble. So the youth has to be encouraged to take the trouble to do this. You don't need to go to a library anymore and find reference books. You need to just go on your Google and it gives you all the information. How to get them interested in that is the challenge that all of us have. And maybe one day with people like her helping us, we'll find the challenge.
So my last question. You represented Mumbai University in boxing.
Yeah.
You keep piranha fish in your house.
Yeah.
और लोग कहते हैं कि आप कभी गुस्सा नहीं होते.
मैं गुस्सा
आप
नहीं
बिल्कुल
हूँ.
ठंडे रहते थे. How you?
I'll tell you, my office was, I designed my office. Our office was called Zen before we became publicists. Now, I had an office which was on the first floor of a building at Worli. It was fully black, like the Oshu ashram is here. And we had artificial trees. So every table had a mango tree go over there, and it looked real. And we had a talking Maina at the reception. So whenever a visitor came, that Maina talked in a human voice and said, hello, Prince, please sit down. She was taught to say those few words. Now, my cabin was the most amazing cabin. That it was a small cabin with a tree in the middle. I sat here on the firm ground, and the entire floor in the front was a fish tank. And there were piranhas in that. And so the guest is sitting here on the glass. with piranhas under her feet, and there was a plastic skeleton and I had put there. There's the bubbles coming out. And I said, that's the client who didn't pay us on time. And behind him, the window I had opened up and kept a thing, and I had a monkey this small, the smallest breed of monkeys in the world. It's called marmoset. So I had a marmoset monkey, and I had a macaw, which was a big bird. And there was no door to that. So, and I had a bulldog which used to come to office with me. So just imagine, the client is sitting on glass wall, glass floor. There are piranhas under his feet. There's a bulldog staring at him. Then suddenly a monkey would jump on his shoulder and take a pen from his shirt or whatever. Why should I get angry? That guy was petrified. He agreed to whatever I said. He never argued with me. No client, if he came to my office, ever argued with me. They wanted to get out from there as fast as they could. So I never had to get angry. And then I represented Bombay University in boxing for 2 years in welterweight. That was the other thing. So even if you get angry with me, there's not much you can do.
So it was so wonderful. I think this conversation deserves a standing ovation from all of us. It was so wonderful talking with you. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Seriously, what an interesting conversation. And we'll keep in mind, we love that social connect is very, very important when you show up your projects. So we'll definitely work on it. So.
And anytime you are in Mumbai, any of you, do drop in at my house. It's at Chembur on the way when you're coming in from there. And I have a zoo in the house. I have 7 dogs. I have 2 pygmy goats. One is called Biryani. The other one is called Iblis. I adopt a lot of things. I have 2 macaws. I have 7 piranhas. So anytime anybody is passing from there, you're all welcome.
But sir, can we get...
But I don't, sir. You get your own food, I'll give you plates.
That's fine, but can we get that auto rickshaw click
the auto
and
rickshaw,
a picture?
this is from last year. I'm not allowed to that private auto rickshaws are banned. So it's still there, but I can't take it out. But you can
Just a
sit in
picture,
that.
if you are there. Just a picture in that. Okay, so can we please have our DG, Dr. Anil Parmar, First Lady, Dr. Hema Parmar, Conveyor, Pramod Deshmukh, and Co-Convener Jayant Yewale to felicitate our esteemed Chief Guest, Bharat Dabholkar ji. Can we have a huge round of applause from all of you? Pranita, please have you on stage.
Let's have a loud round of applause for him. Thank you.
तालियां बजती रहनी चाहिए.